all, I want to just thank everybody who's here today. I think I've met everybody through the course of my store, Carolina, Katia. I have a few people that were clients of mine at Thinking Boutique, which, by the way, it still brings a lot of beautiful memories for me, and I become very melancholic. I mean, she'll remember, hey, I remember getting this from you. So for me, this is a new phase. This is the next phase for me, and podcasting has been something I've been doing. So first, I'd like to thank the sponsors for today, for the event today. The sponsors for tonight are SheSpace founder Stephanie Tsuru and Katie Tsuru, Ms. Shavonnah Roberts Schreiber and Carolina Varon Gambrell of SNR Creative, Finest Blood, Ms. Janine, Miss Janine Dorsey. I'm very grateful to you ladies because you all took a chance on me and you became not only good friends, but also now mentors and my boss. So I'm super grateful for you. I want to thank my Vibes team. I have Jamal Jones, who's doing my audio. He edits my podcast. He's also my lifestyle photographer. So if you see some of those photos on Instagram, sometimes he does them, and sometimes my son Alex will do them. Alex is also sharing his love for videos with Mom. You know, you guys know Miss. He typically does the rap videos, but today he's helping Mom with this one. It's not up his alley, but it's a little bit different. Yes, it's a little bit different, but that's okay. My brand manager, Jennifer, she's over there doing her thing. She never misses a beat, and she always keeps me on target. And everyone else that's here today, one way or another, you have been in my life, and so I'm really grateful for you. I don't want to say anything yet. I want to say thank you to Mr. Elatasi, my husband Rusk, who's always here and always supports everything that I do, and I'm super grateful for him. So this podcast has been a labor of love for the last year and a half, and as you hear when you subscribe, I talk a little bit about traveling, I do a little bit of business. Sometimes Russ will jump in with the business nuggets, and then I also do a little bit of lifestyle. And I interview people. For example, Stephanie was one of the people that I interviewed for my last one. I've invited numerous guests, but you know what? New season 5, it's coming on stronger, bigger, and better. I have Elaine Turner, fashion designer, coming on, and we're going to talk about women who have it all, the myth of women who have it all. So that's a good one. I just interviewed my plastic surgeon, Dr. Christy Hustak. So we're going to talk about plastic surgery as a form of self-love because some people don't see it that way, you know, a little bit of shame in that. So she's going to talk a little bit to us about that. But you know what? It's going to be bigger and better, and the interviews are going to include stories and people and women who are doing it and just kind of their journey, you know, and how they got there. So today we're also doing a little bit of shopping because everything that I do also goes back a little bit to supporting organizations that do things for the community. So today's shopping is going to help proceeds lead to Fiel Houston. They're an immigrant-led organization that helps immigrant communities. And the one thing that they really do is they help pay for fees, especially for the DACA students who can't afford a lawyer. So that's really where they help. So whatever you shop today, proceeds will go to that. And Cesar should be here any minute now. He's going to also be a part of tonight. So the topic for today and the panel for today is the state of podcasting. Where is it? We're going to talk a little bit about the past, we're going to talk a little bit about the present, and we're going to do the future. Like, where are we going? Where are we heading? How many of you are podcast listeners? Okay, how many of you like to binge on podcasts? I'm a binger. Like, the minute I know I'm traveling, I start to download everything, so I know that I'm going to have that. It's growing. It's becoming bigger. Oziel is here. Oziel is the one that encouraged me to get going. I think it was a few years. Please have a seat. There's seats out there too, please. He has a big organization in Houston, Pod Houston, that also supports podcasters with technology, with resources. And I remember meeting with him one time, and I said, you know, I don't feel like I'm ready for it. I don't feel like I'm there yet. And he said, you're not going to feel that. You're just going to have to do it. So that's what I did. I kind of jumped in and did it. So thank you for that. And thank you for that advice, by the way. That helped me as I was coming along. So I'm going to introduce my panel for today. I'm going to introduce first Ms. Shavonnah Roberts Schreiber. I'm introducing you today because you are here to talk to us about the past state of podcasting and how it has improved and established itself as crucial content in modern marketing strategies. As we all here present know and have experienced, podcasting establishes our authority on our field and supports the creation of our target audiences, which is really important to us as entrepreneurs and as small business owners. Shavonnah Roberts Schreiber has precisely devoted her career to this goal. She is an experienced marketer and instructor for the startup and small business owners of Houston. She is a co-host of the podcast Big Ideas Small Business, and she also happens to be a former radio host. Let's give a warm welcome to Shavonnah Roberts Schreiber.
Who wrote that for you?
We work together, my writer, Arlette. Yeah, so we're going to introduce Miss Stephanie Tsuru. She is here to present the current state of podcasting as an established aspect of marketing strategy and community creation for our target audiences. In podcasting, a fairly common and successful strategy to gain listeners and to promote a brand is to bring in a fellow professional. An additional authority to boost the audience of your podcast and to brand while simultaneously boosting their own. Stephanie has been featured in many episodes of different podcasts. She's also the co-founder of this truly wonderful establishment, SheSpace, where we host and present our podcast. We record from here. Yay! Let's give a warm and grateful welcome to Stephanie Tsuru. And I've got my third speaker this afternoon. She will guide us through a look. So Daisy Ayala. I met her when I interviewed her, and I said, I need to know this girl. I need to be around this girl. I love her so much. Our third speaker will guide us through a look into the future of podcasting, including its current use as a marketing tool, but also as a form of self-expression, self-projection, and manifestation. This last year, particularly, over 41% of Americans over the age of 12 became monthly listeners of podcasts, up from 37% in 2019. As such, it would be safe to say that podcasts of all genres became a common aspect of our everyday lives as more and more creators jumped into their recording gears and recorded different genre podcasts. Our final panelist for today is a very dynamic and talented woman who has precisely created a space of her own podcast, Life is Full of Daisies. Love the name. Love the name. For the modern millennial to be encouraged, inspired, and to feel safe to be the best version of themselves. She's also the co-founder of Texas Podcaster Gals, she's a co-founder with me, a network and support community for women in the podcasting field. Please give a warm welcome to Daisy Ayala. So Stephanie, I'm going to start with you. We're going to talk about the present state of podcasting. So, here's your question. Mm-hmm. You have mentioned before that you wanted to create a space where women could create a safe community and develop their dreams as motivation to accomplish their ambitions. Has your presence as a featured guest in different podcasts helped you to grow and shape the community space that you and Katie created in SheSpace? Is podcasting presently a feasible form of communication for a business like yourself in SheSpace?
So what podcasting does is it expands your reach. It exponentially. It just expands and expands and expands. So I can sit in SheSpace and greet the women that come through the door, which I do. Mm-hmm. But in a good day, even if I maybe go to an event, in a good day, maybe I can talk to like 10 or 15 women, and that's on a really good day. To really get to know them, to talk to them, maybe 4 or 5. So what a podcast does is reach out, expands the network, and each podcast has a slightly different theme, a mm-hmm. different point, a different approach you're trying to get across. So
has it helped SheSpace?
Yes. So it helps. It has helped SheSpace, but I think more important, I don't do it to help SheSpace.
Okay. Tell us about that.
No, I don't do it to actually market SheSpace. I actually do it to assist the woman in whatever, whatever they're doing. I mean, SheSpace comes across, but it isn't really about SheSpace. SheSpace is about women and lifting up women and just providing them support and comfort and encouragement. So whoever I'm talking to, I've only done podcasts with women, by the way.
Wow.
So whoever I'm talking to, I'm doing it as a they've asked me. I've said yes, so it's a favor to them. And so what I'm actually doing is helping their network. I'm helping drive their point home. I'm like, when you asked me, I didn't do that for me. Right.
Okay.
And maybe that's just me, but I did it for you. But through talking to you, I'm sure people got to know me. But I think it does help SheSpace. I think in my case, it's more about the women.
Wow.
But I'm sure a lot of people have heard about SheSpace. But my ulterior motive is just to reach lots and lots of women through the message.
Right. Very good. And I think that's something that really did happen when we had you on the podcast. I think a lot of women reached out to me and said, I went straight to the website. I went straight to her Instagram account and I found out more about it because I hadn't heard about. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we heard the
Yes.
podcast and we were looking for a venue for our team.
That's
retreat.
right.
And I was like, oh, yeah. Well, and then it was funny because Stephanie and I sit on a board together, but whatever. Dots didn't connect. And I'm like, hey, we're going to do an event at your space, hopefully, if it's available. And it was. So, it was.
But
That's amazing.
so that's what comes out of it, but just organically and naturally. So I'm not there to promote. I'm there to promote women,
Right.
But not necessarily SheSpace. So I guess ultimately it is a form of.
But you know what? I think it's because when you spoke on the podcast that I listened to, I think that I sent it to you also, Carolina. I sent it to several people because what you had to say I thought was so impactful. And so you came out through the podcast. And so then people are like, what's this lady up to? What does she have going on? And then as a result, SheSpace gets amplified.
Right. But SheSpace ultimately is me in 7,500 square feet.
That's right.
Thank God I'm not that big.
But as she's dressed in all black with no colors in this bright place. But it's the internal you. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate you being a wonderful guest on my podcast.
So I just have to shine on you just a moment. So 2 seconds. We have, there's a lot of women in here now. I think we're up to almost 130 members, but anything she would ask me to do, I would say yes to. I am a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of what she's doing. And now I know her family, love her family, and all your friends. And so actually, thank you very much. I'm very honored, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Love you. Vibes by Alicia Season 5 is sponsored by SNR Creative. Are you putting your money towards visibility but not seeing any change or business growth? Well, that is the problem. SNR Creative is a boutique marketing and business development firm in Houston that specializes in turning your ideas into reality in the most creative way possible. From social media management to website development, graphic design to event management, this full-service creative team does it all. The world can't go on without your services, so let's make sure everybody knows your name. You're either fascinating or forgotten. What will you choose? Get ahead and above the competition by contacting SNR Creative with the link in my bio. Mention Vibes by Alicia and receive a free business consultation. Vibes by Alicia Season 5 is sponsored by SheSpace. Hey you! Yes you! Badass hardworking boss. If you're tired of cliche spaces, of the regular and unimpressive, you want to add a little bit of spice to the shared co-working experience, I have just the place. SheSpace is the hub for bold women. It's the queen's throne away from home. I firmly believe in the proximity principle, which refers to the intention of surrounding yourself with the people who embody your ambitions to achieve them. Find that proximity and experience the dream job life here at SheSpace. With membership, you'll have access to a multitude of amenities, a robust calendar of events, and overall a group of like-minded women. So what are you waiting for? Come and see us at SheSpace. Vibes by Alicia Season 5 is sponsored by Finest Blood. Finest Blood provides patients and partners and clinics with service at its finest. Avoid mixed diagnosis in unprecedented times and commit to laboratory services in the finest way. Whether you are participating in mobile or in-lab services, We will provide you with the finest care and make sure your satisfaction is met. No more waiting long hours in clinics. No more waiting long hours for results. No more leaving the comfort of your own home, if that's what you choose. At Finest Blood, our system is designed to alleviate the challenges of accessibility and timeliness of lab work while providing exceptional customer care. We provide you with the best care in anything that we do. Come and see us or follow us at finestbloodllc.com. Okay, let's go to, I think I'm going to sit down now. Okay, to the past state of podcasting.
Is that because I'm old? That I got the past?
No.
It's okay. It's okay. I feel like I look good to be old. I just was wondering. I'm like,
vast experience.
Oh, I'm embraced. It's embraced. Okay. It's embraced.
Not at all.
Okay.
So you began your career journey as a radio co-host for 93.7 KRQ Tucson in Arizona back in 2003.
Back in the day.
Yes.
Yep.
As a former radio personality who now has audio production as a form of content creation and marketing strategy, has it changed from radio to podcast? So that's one of the questions. What would you say are the similarities and differences? And how much potential do you see in it as a form of content and marketing strategy for small business owners and entrepreneurs?
So the first question, has it changed? Yes and no. And so I invited one of my friends who also has a podcast, Larry Brooks, the Prime Real Estate Network. It's real estate focused, but also small business focused podcast. And one of the things I shared the question with him, and one of the things he said, I think makes me think about how it hasn't changed. So on a podcast, at least for our podcast, Big Idea Small Business, it's live. So it's live. When you come and sit down, it's like it's go time. It's happening.
Yeah.
Just like radio. So the energy, that's what Larry and I were talking about, that you have to bring. You have to be ready to rock and roll. So I was a morning show co-host. So we were on from 4:30 a.m. to 11. That's a long time for a morning show. And then we had live remotes and things like that would happen afterwards. But that means that you are up, you're ready, and the energy has to come through your voice on radio, and you have to ride along with those folks who are on their way to work or wherever they're going and make them laugh and keep them engaged. So I think the same is true for podcasts, except the beauty of a podcast is, like you said earlier, you can download an episode or several episodes and listen to them wherever. Whereas a radio program, if you're not in your car or if you're not tuned in, you miss it. Well, with podcasts, you can go back a year ago and find a podcast and listen to it and still get that content. So as Stephanie mentioned, this ability to reach more people and have the content live on and on and on is fantastic. We have a person who used to work for SNR Creative, and she started a podcast during the pandemic. Well, she doesn't even do it anymore, but she says she still gets 100 downloads a week from her podcast that she started. Isn't that wild? Yeah, and so that's just a testament of, the similarities. You have to be ready. You have to bring at least some Big Idea Small Business. So if you want to come on our podcast, be ready. But other podcasts, I guess you recorded and play back. And then the beauty of it is you do get to listen back. That's
amazing. And how does podcasting, what do you think about it as a marketing strategy for a small business owner?
Yeah, so
or an entrepreneur or a freelancer, basically.
Yeah, I think it's actually a huge opportunity. As a matter of fact, I'm working on a campaign with a nonprofit that I sit on the board for, and we're going to use podcasts and to have them do advertisements on those versus like Houston Public Radio, for example. Because what we started to think about is you could run an ad on a podcast, going back to the point that I made, that could be shared, that lives on and on and on for a fraction of the cost that you could on a radio program or even social media. I mean, quite frankly, in some cases. So I am even recommending it to clients as a way to advertise and get more mileage out of your dollars. So I think that if you haven't thought about it yet and you're a small business owner, I would say that's the first thing to do is go and look through your Apple or Google Play Store and look at those podcasts that make sense for your audience. And it doesn't always have to be same, right? So you think, okay, well, my audience is about automotive. Well, women and men and all kinds of ages listen to or drive cars, so that could be your target audience. But I would say for sure, from a marketing standpoint, I think it's something to consider. And like I said, I don't think it'll be too long before podcast advertisements will reach what radio advertisements are today as far as cost. Yeah.
Okay.
There's actually a statistic that I read that right now podcasts have $1.3 billion in ad, like that companies allot for that, and it's supposed to reach it's going to reach about 2 point something by the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So they're obviously shifting that into marketing and putting it in podcasts.
Streaming media. So podcasts, I would say, is also a form of streaming media. And so if you think about it, cable television versus Netflix versus Apple TV, it's the same thing. It's just audio. And even better because I can listen when I'm exercising. I can listen in the car. I can listen when I'm walking around the parking garage at the office. I don't have a radio, but I have my phone and my AirPods. I think that's I am old. The things that go in your AirPods. And I can listen and I can catch up. As a matter of fact, I keep mentioning Larry just because I think they do such a good job on their podcast as far as how they run it and the guests they have. I listen randomly to something back in June, and I text the guy who was on it because I know him, but I hadn't talked to him in a year.
Wow.
Because of something he mentioned on the podcast.
Wow.
So even as sort of a way it was Lewis, a way to kind of make these connections and how it lives on and on. I just think that there's not another medium I can think of that the same is true. That's why I think that advertisement and then advertising spend is definitely going to double, and I wouldn't be surprised if it got larger.
That's amazing. Would you consider podcasting another form of influencer marketing?
So influencer, I'm the wrong person to ask about influencer marketing.
Okay.
Because influencer marketing kind of got out of hand.
Okay.
It used to make sense, but then it kind of got crazy, right? Where it's like, okay, I have to pay you $10,000 to do a story. I know I can't cuss because this is on. But no, the answer is absolutely not. Yeah.
Wow. Gotcha.
I think it's become a caricature in a way.
Right.
And so I hope that podcasting doesn't become that. I hope it stays pure in the advertisement, more like radio or television. And that it's you can clearly see, I pay for this many ears are going to hear my content. I can see some clear ROI because I have a call to action and a code or whatever.
Okay.
I just hope it stays pure that way, because otherwise it'll get inflated and it'll start to lose a little bit of its luster, at least in my mind.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's a really beautiful perspective to have, because I haven't heard that one before.
I got a lot of perspectives.
Ooh, yes. So, by the way, Shavonnah's going to be a guest on my podcast coming up. So, you ladies and men will want to jump in on that podcast episode, because this is continuing. I've tapped into something here, and I cannot wait to get into it a little bit more with you.
Excited.
I can't wait for you all to get that. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, Daisy, the future of podcasting.
Well, hi.
Let me ask you the question. Daisy, you're a versatile podcaster and influencer on Instagram. How would you measure your growth as a person after having created your podcast, Life is Full of Daisies? And how have you found your self-expression, your self-projection, and manifesting after your podcast? And what trends do you see for the future as a form of self-fulfillment?
Okay, so that's a lot. Let's break it down.
I can go back.
And if I forget to answer, just remind me which part I haven't answered yet. But as far as my growth, I think it's been immense, because this started as a passion project, and I wanted to create a space where there was a lot of things that I didn't know growing up, and it's like I had to learn on my own, and I wanted to be able to have a space for other people to come, especially being a Latina. It's just there's things that your parents just don't talk about. And I was like, I don't want to be that way. I want to talk about the hard topics. I want to be able to have conversations where we have different perspectives but still appreciate everyone and co-live together. So for me, that growth has just, quadrupled. Like, I've been able to really learn a lot about myself. I've become a better podcaster because of it, because I start learning how to really ask the right questions to make sure it's a wholesome conversation that is brought to whoever's listening. And going back to something that you said about just podcasting, essentially for marketing, what I've noticed is it's a great way to target a niched audience. And that's important for marketing and brands, because podcasts create a community. They create a place where people feel that they belong. A lot of my listeners have told me that they're like, I feel like I'm having a conversation with you over coffee. And that's exactly the vibe that I wanted to portray in my podcast. And because of that, I've been able to just, go wherever I want to
Yeah.
go with this podcast. And as far as like, what was the other question?
Your growth and self-manifesting, self-fulfillment, like how does that help you? How does podcast help you?
As far as my growth and self-fulfillment, being able to bring different things to other people has been what was my main goal in the first place. As far as manifesting that, I've realized that because this was just a little dream or something written on a piece of paper once upon a time, and now I've seen how it's grown, has definitely taught me that anything can happen as long as you consistently put the work in and you continually
Love
have
that.
the goal in sight.
Love that.
So it's made my manifestations a lot grander, if that makes sense. Like,
Yes.
it's just like, I'm like, anything's possible. Like, I'm capable of everything. And then as far, what was,
The trends. Where are the trends? Where are the trends going? Where do you see the future of podcasting? Or where are you taking your podcast next, for example? She is setting a trend, yes.
yeah, life is full of daisies, right? So the trends that I see happening is, one, a lot of people are gonna, because of the pandemic, we've all been in screens and Zoom calls and all this, and a lot of people want to disconnect. And podcasts are an amazing way to be able to still learn and listen to information that is important to you, but at the same time disconnect. You can be walking, you can be driving, you can be cleaning your house, whatever it be. You're still able to have all of that right there without being on a screen. Like you said, just take out your AirPods and listen to it. I see it definitely growing in that aspect. Also, a trend that I truly see is businesses or people that are entrepreneurs and are in a very niche targeted area incorporating podcasts to create value for their customers. Because a lot of people, they want what you can't get that in like YouTube. I feel like YouTube, I don't personally watch YouTube videos, but I feel like they don't want to be watching something. You want to be listening to something, and podcasts, you're able to really have a longer conversation and bring connection to your audience. Whereas you can't do that on Instagram, you can't do that on Facebook, you can't do that anywhere else. And podcast is relatively small right now, but businesses are going to see, like you said, it's going to get to a point where there's going to be more marketing budgets for people to use in their podcast so that they can market their business.
Or even just podcasts being seen as a channel, right? So right now people think of social media, regular media as far as just like digital advertisement, and people don't really think, some people do, but it's not a line item. And what are the channels that I have at my disposal when I'm thinking about where I can amplify my message? And I think more and more it's becoming that way. So now a podcast, that's an option. So there may be people who only advertise on podcasts. And I think also podcasters haven't yet package themselves in a way that say, okay, I have a media package that I'm going to businesses with.
Good point.
And I can talk through how it compares apples to apples with what they're used to seeing. Right.
Yeah.
So that's part of the thing that needs to happen, the transition for it to become a more viable channel, is podcasters have to package the podcast. And the reach to businesses. So businesses can say, okay, this makes sense to me. People are used to seeing a media package that looks a certain way.
And the engagement and all this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, with podcasts, you're creating a community and where people feel like they belong and they're part of the discussion. And that right there is a very powerful tool for any business, especially small businesses, because you can utilize that to bring new customers.
Do y'all know who Tim Ferriss is? Yes. Okay, everybody knows Tim Ferriss, all right? You're like, yes, and I love him. Me too. So one of the things that Tim Ferriss says, and he has long form podcasts, so like 2 hours, and I'm that person that'll listen. I'll break it up, but I'll listen because they're always so good. He said that you just need 100 loyal people to build a profitable business. That's it. This idea that you need to reach, 50,000, you don't. You need 100 loyal people. And so to your point about podcasts being a tool to build this niche community, that's the first thing that popped into my mind. So if a podcaster or a business owner can tap into a podcast that has 100 loyal people who, whatever that person who it's their podcast endorses, says is great, they say, oh, at least check it out. Maybe they don't end up going through with the purchase, but they at least consider it. That I don't think we've not figured out a way to talk about how that leads to exponential revenue growth.
That, and also, again, going back to statistics, because I do love my statistics, 95% of podcast listeners are more likely to go to a page and follow that brand because they heard it from that podcaster, because they trust that what they're being told.
Yes, and I hear that all the time. I get DMs all the time from like, I went to that person because I heard them on your podcast.
And so from an advertising standpoint, so then I love stats and money. So you go, okay, how do I track that? How do I monetize that? So if I get this number of, if they go and they put this code in, I love Alicia, and they get 50 people who go put that code in, then what is the value of that to you from that business? That's a way you package your advertisement, right? Your offering. And I think that's the value. So I guess I should speak, I love value, not money in that way. But anyway, the point is, I think that's how we have to figure out how to talk about the value, because you're right. And I don't think people realize that. I don't think people realize from my podcast, from your podcast, 50 people have now gone to whatever this particular page is, because you said so. And then they forwarded it to friends and other people, and now other people are there. And so that's that exponential growth that you get just from having that small niche audience that's engaged.
That is very true.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I also want to point out is that I think a lot more people trust a podcaster as opposed to an influencer posting something or an ad on because I do hear that a lot. I think it's just become so saturated. And so again, going back to the conversation of influencer marketing, which we're going to touch up on again, because I think this is really important. Podcasters have a sense of authority and credibility that typical influencers don't. And I think that's something we should definitely, look more into. And it is part of the trends that are happening as we go along in podcasting. But definitely, I want everybody to pull their phones out and start following everybody's podcast. If you're not following it, y'all make sure y'all do that. And also, we really would love feedback and reviews. That really helps us, and telling your friends about it and telling, hey, I just heard this episode. You have to listen. Share it with everybody, please, because it really it matters to us because we put our heart and soul into everything that we do, especially every episode. I go through and research. I let my writer, I have Jennifer, who sometimes does some of my research, because I want to make sure that when I'm putting something out there, that it benefits all of you and that it matters to y'all. I'm just not going to get on, and speak on anything. I want to make sure that everything resonates with you. So those are some of the things. It's why it's so important, and I appreciate you all being here today, because this shows that this is important to you as well, and showing that sort of support. So please follow everybody too. Where can they find you, by the way?
I think you should set a goal. I mean, I think my name is real hard to spell. So if you can spell Shavonnah, you can find me, because there's not another one. But I think you should set a goal. So I think I hear people say, so I like metrics too. So this is the stats. Oh, like how many people are here, then plus invite 5 friends. Yeah. So whatever the number times 5 of new followers of your podcast. Yeah. Or agree to share an episode or something that's more tangible that we can all say, yep, I can do that. I can go and look and share an episode, or get 5 of my friends at least to check it out. I think we need to make those types of ask and call to actions a little bit more intentional. And I think people are willing to do it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share the podcast with 5 of my friends. Okay.
I'll share it with all my followers.
Oh, share it with all your followers. Yeah.
I always ask people, follow, share if you love it, because like Alicia said, we really pour our hearts out into the content that we're bringing, because it's value to us and it's information that we see true worth in, and we want to be able to bring that to all of the people that are listening to what we have to say.
Right. And by the way, we're always open to suggestions and feedback. And if you have a topic that you think, you would want to listen to that we haven't touched upon, please do that. I get a lot of requests on relationship podcasting, and I'm like, I don't want to do relationships, but I get so much. I write out letters. We get that all the time. Like, yes. When Russ gets on the relationship podcast with me, everybody's like, oh my God, that was so good. Y'all need to do more. Do you know how long it takes me to convince him to get on the podcast with me?
Yeah.
Oh, it takes a glass of wine. Now we know. A glass of wine. Anyways, I want to say thank you to everybody. I want to thank my panelists. Shavonnah, I appreciate you so much. Daisy, Stephanie had to step out. But everybody, thank you so much for being here. Please mingle and have a conversation with our panelists. They are like a wealth of information. So please, yes.
We're sponsoring season 5. We're one of the sponsors, SNR Creative. So we really need to set some goals for downloads, for shares. I ain't the noodle on it, but we will talk about it. Yeah, and let's set a goal for how much you want to grow your following on your podcast in the time of the season. Let's set a goal for that.
You're absolutely correct. I'm so glad you reminded me of that as well as Fine as Blood. She's going to also be sponsoring our season 5, and SheSpace. And Stephanie left, but she's also one of our sponsors for season 5. But definitely, I want you all to please promise me, raise your hand. You're going to promise me you're going to share it with 5 people, all of us. Yeah. Okay, pinky promise. Honor code. Thank you so much, Daisy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.